The Open Public Meeting Law requires that anyone recording this meeting identify themselves and that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. Is it working or no?
It was working.
Okay.
I'll get
Is it fine? Okay. If there is anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting, please identify yourself now. Okay. So beginning with the EDIC agenda. Item number 1, request authorization for approval of the minutes of the December 12, 2019 meeting. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion passes. Item number 2, request authorization to grant tentative designation status to and enter into lease negotiations with the Cronin Group LLC to facilitate the long-term lease and redevelopment of 24 Dry Dock Avenue within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. 24 to 26 Dry Dock Avenue consists of approximately 32,000 square feet of land with a 3-story, approximately 30,000 square feet plus basement building. This property is part of a BPDA lease with Boston Ship Repair, a division of Northeast Ship Repair of Philadelphia, as part of its active Dry Dock 3 complex in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Because Boston Ship Repair lacks the available capital to develop the 24 Dry Dock building, they agreed to work jointly with BPDA to issue an RFP for the property in order to identify a redeveloper that can leverage the economic potential of the project site to subsidize the rent of Boston Ship, thereby supporting the operations of the dry dock and retaining a blue-collar, marine-dependent industry in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Dry dock number 3 is the only major dry dock facility in New England capable of handling large vessels such as military cargo ships and cruise vessels. It is estimated that Boston Ship Repair accounts for 100 jobs within its leasehold area, as well as 500 indirect jobs. Accordingly, staff received authorization to advertise this RFP at the June 2019 board. The RFP was issued on July 13, 2019, with responses due on August 14, 2019. 5 excellent proposals were received. The selection committee, working with a financial consultant under contract with BPDA, consisted of multidisciplinary BPDA staff who analyzed the proposals in great detail, conducted interviews with all 5 proponents, and deliberated carefully to arrive at today's recommendation to the board. The selection committee also included representatives from Boston Ship Repair to ensure that their interests were represented. The selection committee determined that the Cronin Group LLC submitted the most advantageous proposal. That determination was based upon the following. Cronin demonstrates a dedicated commitment to redevelopment within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Cronin intends to relocate its headquarters to 24 Dry Dock, which manifests a commitment not only to the success of the project, but to the dry dock and the marine park. Their proposed development program, I'll forward this to show you. Whoop. I don't know why it's not advancing. Oh, thank you, Joyce. Here's a rendering of their development. Their proposed development program also includes significant public benefits, such as permanent space in 24 Dry Dock for Cronin's program to assist non-English speaking employees to improve their English language skills, permanent programmable space for the nonprofit organization Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, and a commitment from Ron Burton Training Village to join the 24 Dry Dock education and workforce space. And you'll be hearing more about their great work in a few minutes. Cronin's highly credentialed and experienced development team, Cronin's strong financial capacity and record of financing and constructing high-quality developments in Boston, and specifically in the Seaport, a development program mix that meets the regulatory constraints of the Marine Park and includes new space for Boston Ship Repair, as well as an activated first floor, which includes a commissary space and a public restaurant which will serve the local workforce. An attractive, high-quality signature design. There's another, well, a detailed diversity and inclusion plan that includes woman-owned business enterprise Coup d'etat LLC as an equity partner, minority business enterprise DHK Architecture for design services, and entails the meaningful participation of people of color and women in all phases of development, from equity participation, planning and design, to construction and building operations. Finally, Cronin offers a ground lease price to the BPDA that exceeds the RFP's asking price and provides a full rent subsidy to Boston Ship Repair. Cronin's development program is for an approximately $81.2 million, 123,000 square foot, 5-story building plus basement with Boston Ship Repair space and a marine commissary and restaurant activating the first floor. The second, third, and fourth floors will accommodate general industrial tenants, including lab, research and development, testing and engineering uses per the Marine Park Master Plan update. The fifth floor will contain supporting uses for marine research and development tenants, as well as the Cronin headquarters. So at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Donna Camiolo, who's the development director at Cronin Development.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden. My name is Donna Camiolo, and I'm the development director for the Cronin Group. First, we would like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. We are thrilled and excited to be working with the BPDA and with our new partners, Boston Ship Repair. We understand how important this industry is to the city as well as the region. I'd like to introduce some of our team members who are here with us today. And I think they'll probably wave or stand up so you'll know who they are. They're just throughout the crowd. Fernando Dominique from DHK Architects, Alberto Cardenas from DHK Architects, Tosh Takatomo from DHK Architects, Paul Burton from Ron Burton Training Village, also Davide Alexander from Ron Burton Training Village, and we're very honored to have Mrs. Joanne Burton with us here today. We also have Meyer Smith, who is the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator for Save the Harbor, Save the Bay. Bruce Berman from Save the Harbor, Save the Bay. Claudia Green, Director of English for the New Bostonians. And joining me today from the Cronin Group is Michael Knieve, who is our COO, and Abby Burke, who is our internal architect. We're very excited about the proposed project, not only because it will add to the vitality of the seaport, but also because it will be the future home of the Cronin Group's corporate headquarters. The Cronin Group has approximately 2,400 employees, of which 80% of them are female and/or people of color, and 50% of them reside within the city of Boston. In addition to the headquarters, the Cronin Commissary will also be located within the building. And along with that will be a lunch counter that will have indoor and outdoor seating, which we think will be a great amenity for the surrounding community, as well as really activating the public realm within that area. We've partnered with 3 nonprofit organizations to provide training and workforce development space within the building, as well as funding to help them further their mission. The nonprofits include English for the New Bostonians, who provide language skill training to non-English speaking community members. And as part of this project, we will offer free classes to anyone interested in the program. Save the Harbor, Save the Bay provide access to Boston Harbor and the island to all Boston residents. The new space will allow them to enhance their current Boston Harbor programs that will bring more than 15,000 underserved and low-income children and families to the seaport. In the Ron Burton Training Village, who provide enhanced enrichment services to challenged youths with focus on character and leadership development, physical fitness, social and educational advancement, and spiritual growth. We also recognize the need for affordable transportation to allow the community access to the employment opportunities within the building and within the seaport area, as well as the job training and development opportunities. So we've been working closely with the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority on the existing free shuttle that exists from South Station to the seaport area. We will be implementing a new free shuttle from Dudley Square to our building and other locations within the seaport. This shuttle will allow residents access to all of the benefits that are happening over in Seaport as we see this growth. As I said, the team is really excited to be here. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with the BPDA, Boston Ship Repair, and the surrounding communities as the project moves forward. Thank you very much for your consideration today.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude the presentation? Okay, great. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Still the chair. Okay, item number 3. Request authorization to enter into and execute the memorandum of agreement to test automated driving systems on public ways in Massachusetts between the City of Boston and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation and Nutonomy, Inc., an affiliate of Aptiv Services US LLC, authorizing Nutonomy's continued use of streets and ways in Massachusetts, including the EDIC-owned streets and ways within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the board. Today, we request authorization to enter into and execute a memorandum of agreement between the BPDA, City of Boston, Mass Department of Transportation, and Nutonomy to continue to test automated driving systems on the streets and ways of the City of Boston, including the streets and ways owned by the EDIC and located in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. I know this board has had a keen interest in this topic in the past and has raised thoughtful questions about transportation policy, roadway safety, and return on investment. To address these topics, I'd like to introduce Chris Carter, who is the co-chair of the Mayor's Office of New Urban Mechanics, who has overseen autonomous vehicles since they were introduced to the city. He will provide much more detail on this request.
Great. Thank you.
Slightly taller. Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, thank you for giving me a few moments to talk about these MOAs and the activity that has been happening in Boston around autonomous vehicles. I'm Chris Carter, I co-chair the Mayor's Office of New Urban Mechanics, and I'm here to talk specifically about those memorandums of agreement and how they impact the roads within the Ray Flynn Marine Park. The AV program, as you're aware of, was started in 2016. I'm not going to speak too much to the history of that program, but happy to go into those details if you have questions to that. The Mayor's executive order in 2016 permitted testing of autonomous vehicles, and this really grew out of the Go Boston 2030 transportation planning process, where we heard residents identify 3 principal goals. How do we make our streets safer? How do we make our transportation system safer? And how do we make it more reliable? And how do we make our transportation more accessible? In the United States, almost 40,000 people each year die from vehicle crashes, about the same number of people that die from breast cancer. We as a society have sort of become desensitized to this traffic violence and the scale of those deaths. In Boston last year, there were 10 fatalities on our streets. Over 4,000 people were injured as a result of crashes. In a study from the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, it was stated that 94% of crashes are a result of human error, 28% of crashes are from drunk driving. As we think about the future and autonomous vehicles being on our roadways, we are confident that vehicles don't drink, they hopefully are not distracted by cell phones, and they follow the speed limits. In addition to perhaps addressing critical safety concerns, we believe that with the right policies put in place, the technology can help us address first and last mile connectivity issues, solve transportation challenges for older and aging adults, third shift workers, and provide a strong link to public transportation. Since 2017, we've had thousands of hours of driven autonomously on Boston roadways without incident. In the fall of 2018, we revisited our testing application process with MassDOT and MAPC and a dozen surrounding municipalities. Over the course of 2019, we put together a new version of an MOA, testing plans, and an application process that we believe is a model for other states. We are here before you today requesting approval to enter into this new MOA. The updated version has a first responder interaction plan, updated crash protocols should that occur, and folds information on safety driver training that had previously been agreed to with these companies but was not part of the MOA process. The new MOA runs for a 2-year period instead of the current 1-year period, requires monthly reporting that is publicly accessible on the City of Boston and MassDOT's website, and monthly conference calls with all partners and parties in the MOA. As always, testing in Massachusetts requires a safety driver. These vehicles are not driving by themselves. Additionally, both of the companies that we're putting for you today utilize a safety associate who rides as a passenger as an additional check on the vehicle's performance. I ask, when's the last time you looked into a car and saw 2 people solely focused on the task of getting from A to B? Both companies operate under 25 miles an hour in Boston, and the fleets in operation are relatively small, currently comprising just 12 vehicles. And test plans have also limited activity during cruise days within the park. I believe in October at the board meeting, there were some questions relating to AV revenue and ROI. And since locating their headquarters in Boston, these 2 companies have created over 250 jobs, not just jobs for PhDs, but up and down range of skill sets. And while economic activity generated by this industry rooted in Boston is good, it is not the biggest ROI we hope to see. It's preventing those crashes, those 10 fatalities, those thousands of people that were treated by Boston EMS last year. And fostering the industry here, we hopefully think that those advantages will accrue here first in Boston. We are not conflating business models with technology development. The current testing plans agreed to by the city and MassDOT and here in this MOA do allow for passenger carriage as part of vehicle testing. But the testing plans explicitly do not allow companies to charge a fee for those rides. Should that change in the future, we would revisit these agreements, revisit fee assessments, and then also ensure compliance with ride-for-hire regulations that exist in the Commonwealth as regulated by the Department of Public Utilities. Lastly, I believe that it's important that the City of Boston, our street network, and the BPDA streets operate as a seamless network. The Boston Transportation Department feels that it is not appropriate to charge a fee for testing these vehicles on the 850 miles of Boston streets. And in conversations with BPDA staff, they agree that adding a fee to operations to just BPDA-owned roads would be a cumbersome dual system that would be difficult to manage. Happy to take any questions that you have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good update. Okay, item number 4, request authorization to enter into and execute the memorandum of agreement to test automated driving systems on public ways in Massachusetts between the City of Boston, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, and Optimus Ride, Inc., authorizing Optimus Ride, Inc.'s continued use of streets and ways in Massachusetts, including the EDIC-owned streets and ways within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park, Maureen, or not Maureen.
Yeah, this is the same vote, or same, no further presentation, same topics the last.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Item number 5, request authorization to amend the ground lease with Coastal Cement Corporation to extend the term of the ground lease and the deadline to exercise the third option term until June 1st, 2020. Devin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Coastal Cement Corporation has been a tenant in the Marine Park since 1985. You may recognize their facility as the 4 giant cement silos at the eastern edge of the harbor. They are the perfect example of a maritime user. They qualify as 100% maritime industrial use, as their cement is manufactured in Portland, Maine, and then barged to Boston, where it's offloaded from the harbor into the silos. The lease terms with Coastal require them to exercise a 5-year lease extension option by February 15th of this year. The fixed rent for each option period is not predetermined in the lease. Instead, it's to be negotiated at the beginning of each period to ensure it accurately reflects the market value for this unique use. Coastal Cement has expressed strong interest in exercising this 5-year extension. BPDA staff have worked diligently with Coastal on this new lease agreement. However, a final deal has not yet emerged. This is through no fault of Coastal Cement, and is due to the fact that the BPDA has been negotiating a complicated 4-party agreement on new boundaries for the site, and that's an agreement between Massport, the Davis companies, BPDA, and Coastal. So given all the moving parts in this negotiation, BPDA staff are requesting an approval for an extension of the term of the ground lease and the deadline for exercising Coastal's option agreement. We fully anticipate bringing both of these transactions back before the board in advance of the June 1, 2020 deadline. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order. So moved. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 6, request authorization to execute a notice of activity and use limitation pursuant to Section 6 of Chapter 21E of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended for the development of Parcel A within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Lawrence.
Good afternoon. In August of 2017, BPDA entered into a ground lease with the Parcel A Development Leasing LLC. That was to construct approximately a 411-room hotel with additional hotel amenities and auxiliary retail space. It expected that the certificate of occupancy will be issued sometime summer of 2020. As is the case in most of the property of the Raymond L. Flynn Park, the land is landfill and was a former South Boston Naval Annex. In terms of developing the site, PCBs were found on the site as part of the remediation and so forth. As part of the construction, and a reportable condition to Chapter 21E of Mass General Law, a use and activity limitation is being put on the site, which will determine how to maintain the site in the future and so forth. What you have before us, and will have no effect on the site, is really a housekeeping vote. The responsibility will be on the developer, and this is just authorized the director to sign as owners of the property, the AUL with DEP.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
What size area is affected by the PCBs? Is it the entire site?
No, it's just the Parcel A site will have the AUL restriction on it, which is the development site. It's approximately a 40,000 square foot footprint.
And is the dirt going to get removed, or what are they going to do?
It is, the dirt has been removed. The levels of contamination, there are remaining PCBs. The site is clean and so forth, as long as those materials are not disturbed in the future, capped and so forth. And AUL just puts restrictions that in the future, as you're doing work and so forth, here's how you do it, here's how you clean it, here's how you maintain it and so forth. But the site has been cleaned to a level for occupancy by a hotel.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion
Thank you.
passes. Okay. Item number 7, request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals for the trolley stop program during the 2020 cruise season with 2 seasonal extension options within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The BPDA owns and operates the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park, which essentially surrounds and landlocks the Black Falcon Cruise Terminal, a Massport-owned property. In 2019, the terminal reached a big milestone, serving over 400,000 passengers and 138 cruise ships. The passenger volume is a 3% increase over the 2018 cruise season, driven by new itineraries, larger ships, and a longer season, which actually began in March of 2019, normally begins in April. The terminal generates millions of dollars towards the local economy and supports nearly 2,200 jobs throughout the visitor economy in the Commonwealth. In 2020, 4 major cruise lines, Norwegian Cruise Line, Holland America, Royal Caribbean, and Celebrity Cruises, will be home porting in Boston, a first for the terminal. In 2019, there were only 3. Since 2009, BPDA has entered into annual license agreements with privately owned sightseeing tour companies to establish the non-exclusive use and operation of a trolley stop located on BPDA-owned property and in close proximity to the terminal. The trolley stop allows the participating trolley tour companies to service the considerable influx of visitors to the city of Boston associated with the terminal's port-o-call cruise ship schedule. The trolley stop program has considerable benefit to BPDA and participating vendors in that it establishes an organized method to permit hundreds of thousands of port-o-call cruise ship visitors to safely traverse BPDA property. It also proved to be a profitable venture for participating vendors and has generated revenue for the BPDA. The BPDA seeks to issue a request for proposals to ensure maximum participation in the trolley stop program. Up to 3 licenses will be granted to qualify respondents submitting the most advantageous proposals. The awarded licenses will be for the 2020 cruise ship season, with 2 additional optional seasonal extension options. Each season will run from April through November of each year, subject to the terminal's official cruise ship schedule.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you. Item number 8, request authorization to advertise and issue an invitation for bids for refuse removal services within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. John.
Thank you and good afternoon, Ms. Vice Chairman, members of the board. Staff is asking permission to advertise and issue an invitation for bid for refuse removal in the Raymond L. Flynn Park. This awarded contract will be for a term of 3 years, not expected to exceed $120,000 over the 3-year term.
Okay, does that conclude? Yeah.
That's it.
Any questions from the board?
Can we make a special effort on this to reach out to women and firms of color? Because this is one of the areas where there are a number of potential bidders, and I want to make sure that they know about this quite actively.
Yeah, that has been discussed and we will do that.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Okay, item number 9, we have an informational update for budget FY20 Q2. Michelle.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. I am Michelle Goldberg, the Budget Director for the Boston Planning and Development Agency. I'm here this afternoon to share a brief budget update. We plan to present the FY19 end of year and first quarter at the December board, but with the jam-packed agenda, we felt it best to deliver our update in writing and to allow the meeting to proceed. That said, tonight we will still take a quick peek at FY19 end of year, and then I will provide a brief budget update as of the second quarter. I'm joined by our Chief Financial Officer, Brian Connolly. We have a few slides to present to you, and we'll be happy to take your questions. Sorry, folks, technical difficulties. All right, so it's our summary there. It's tough to see, but I'll walk you through it. Fiscal year 2019 began on July 1st, 2018 and concluded on June 30th, 2019. It was a truly historic year for the BPDA. We saw favorable performance early on, and that carried through the end of the fiscal year, but that's not what made FY19 so historic. After investing upwards of $15 million of capital investments to the China Trade Center, we are finally seeing a return on that investment. In the second quarter of FY19, we saw 2 large one-time transactions that reflect the BPDA's constant effort to stimulate economic growth. First, the BPDA's proceeds from the related Beal financing, and second, the sale of the crosstown parcel to the Boston Medical Center for their expansion. This resulted in an extraordinary operating surplus of $23 million. This is highly unusual for the BPDA. Because of this, it was the first time in many years that the BRA did not need an intercompany grant from EDIC, so that explains some of the variances that you see on both grant income and contracted services. And when it comes to expenses, we're starting to see accuracy on our salary line. We are getting better at tracking maintenance costs, and we are pleased that the intercompany grant didn't happen. All of this is the result of hard work from staff across the entire agency, and we're really proud and grateful for that. What also made FY19 so interesting for me personally is the fact that we set up our capital reserve fund. It was established to help us capture the strong performance and direct it to our most critical infrastructure needs. The positive performance in FY19 allowed the BPDA to establish this reserve fund in CDs and U.S. Treasury notes. We regularly review the portfolio, and as appropriate capital needs arise, we have a mechanism to draw from those investments. I will return to that at the conclusion of the presentation if there's any questions. There's more good news. The positive performance is continuing in FY20. The fiscal year began on July 1, 2019, and the first quarter was quiet. But in the second quarter, we had another historic transaction. The long-awaited South Station air rights deal has been finalized, and we received our first payment, $3.6 million. We budgeted for this and are excited that it won't cause a large variance. On the expense side, we are sure we still have a ways to go to get the seasonality right, but all of these variances are reasonable given where we are in the year. The EDIC has sent an intercompany grant to BRA for pension and other post-retirement benefit expenses. I will note that the operating budget for FY20 also included 2 large construction projects, the culvert and sinkhole repair at the Charlestown Navy Yard, and the demolition and remediation of Building 108. We weren't sure exactly when permits and procurement was going to happen for this, so we did go ahead and spread it across the whole year. So that's why you see some fairly large variances in the property management category. We're going to clean that up because it's unlikely we'll realize the cost for that whole both of those whole projects in this fiscal year. So we're going to have to shift some of that to next year as well. Speaking of construction, let's talk capital. We are seeing signs that capital spending is accelerating after several months of procurement and contracting work. We continue to work on Black Falcon Ave, and bills are coming in for the garage repair and environmental remediation at 33 Northern Ave. We only spent about $4 million in FY19, and we have already spent about that amount in the first half of this year. As we all know, we have an extensive portfolio of over $200 million of capital needs to ensure our assets sustain us well into the future. We have worked closely with the real estate department and have already identified over $10 million from that portfolio in new capital requests. The bulkhead at East Jetty, the South Jetty, windows at China Trade, Long Wharf, bulkhead improvements are just some of the projects that are in the queue. There's so much evolving with each of these projects, and while the pace seems painfully slow, there's only one chance to get this right, and I really appreciate folks grinding through. When it comes to procuring these projects, all of our non-personnel spending falls into our commitment for the mayor's executive order on equitable procurement. It's embedded in everything we're doing. We are working with the Office of Economic Development to start to host events and selecting all of those projects. And so absolutely, trash removal is one of those projects. We are fortunate enough to have started a lot of the work on the procedural clarification upon my arrival in 2016. The core of the executive order calls for all of the work that would be required in advance of a successful disparity study that opens the path for programming to tip the scales for businesses that are left behind. What a lot of people don't know is that once you have a successful disparity study and set up programming, you're only covered for 5 years. Every 5 years, you need to go back to the state and defend your program, adjust where your disparities are, and adjust your programs to keep up with the progress that you're making. Therefore, the BPDA and the city needs to think about beyond the next few cycles to figure out how we build an ecosystem that will allow us to track and report on this work in new and powerful ways. We are by the city's side on all fronts. 2 weeks from now, I will be heading to Atlanta to convene with the Living Cities Inclusive Procurement Cohort, and I'm eager to bring back ideas and energy from that work. FY21 will be the first year that this work becomes very visible in our budget. Before I wrap up, I would like to let folks know that on our website is the FY20 budget book. Each time we come to do these updates, I kind of wonder if these tables are enough and if this truly is transparency, but I would say that if you pick up the budget book and use that as a complement to build your understanding of our financial operations, we're being more open and transparent than ever before. In conclusion, I would like to thank the entire finance team for the ongoing efforts to provide the board and public with this information. A special thank you goes to Dylan Darcy. We've had some trouble with our databases, and changing in our management practices resulted in some hiccups, and Dylan had to do quite a bit of manual work to keep the trains running on all of our reporting, and I just really appreciate his patience and attention to detail in very tedious work. With that, that's the conclusion of my presentation, and I or Brian would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
I just want to thank you for your leadership on the procurement changes. It's really exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Any additional questions from the board? You're like, yeah, no, I'm just like, that's it. I answered my question. Thank you. Yeah, so no, I don't think we have any questions, and that was an informational update. Congratulations, Michelle, the entire finance and accounting organization. It's really gratifying to kind of see how far we've come and how strong of a foundation you guys have built so that we can get here. So kudos, thank you. And personnel. We're gonna, Jamie?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. My name is Jamie Lamarco, and I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager for EDIC. We have a few items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda. We have 4 appointments with details in the board memo. Sarah Suri, Workforce and Policy Manager in the Office of Workforce Development Department, with a start date of February 3rd, 2020. Sienna Crawford, Real Estate Paralegal in the Office of General Counsel Department, with a start date of February 3rd, 2020. Lee Estabrook, Director of Human Resources in the Human Resources Department, with a start date of February 3rd, 2020. Napur Monani, Senior Planner and Institutional Project Manager in the Development Review Department, with a start date of March 2nd, 2020. We have 2 status changes, with the details also listed in the board memo. Devin Wedge, Grants and Budget Assistant Manager in the Budgets and Finance Department. Kathleen Sullivan, Deputy Director of Community Engagement in the Reed Boston Department. And we have 1 departure, with details also listed in the board memo. Paul Osborne, Deputy Director of Capital Construction. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. EDIC meeting adjourned. The Open Public Meeting Law requires that anyone recording this meeting identify themselves and that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. If there is anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting, will you please identify yourself now? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to our first agenda item, request authorization for the approval of the minutes of the December 12th, 2019 meeting. Motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion passes. Item number 2. These I'll read together, right?
Yep.
I read them all together. Okay, I will read all items 2 through 5 together, and we'll take one vote. Request authorization to advertise a public hearing for February 13th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. or at a time and date to be determined by the director for the master plan for Plan Development Area Number 124 Suffolk Downs and its 5 associated Phase 1 through 5 development plans, and to consider the Suffolk Downs project as a development impact project. Item number 3, request authorization to advertise a public hearing for February 13th, 2020 at 5:40 p.m. or at a time and date to be determined by the director to consider the amendment to Plan Development Area Number 74 Fenway Center and to consider the Fenway Center Phase 2 as a development impact project. Item number 4, request authorization to advertise a public hearing for February 13th, 2020 at 5:50 p.m. or at a time and date to be determined by the director to consider the 290 Tremont Street Parcel P12C project in the Midtown Cultural District within the South Cove Urban Renewal Area as a development impact project. And item number 5, request authorization to advertise a public hearing for February 13th, 2020 at 6 p.m. or at a time and date to be determined by the director to consider the notice of project change for 15 Necco Street, the proposed Fifth Amendment to the master plan for Plan Development Area Number 69, South Boston, the 100 acres, and the amended and restated development plan for 5 and 15 Necco Street, South Boston, within Plan Development Area Number 69, South Boston, the 100 acres. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Okay, item number 6, we have the Board of Appeal. Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden. Before you tonight are 59 petitions for transmittal to the Zoning Board of Appeal. These recommendations will cover their next 3 meetings on the 23rd, 28th, and February 4th. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you. Item number 7, request authorization to amend the ground lease with CVPA Chain Forge LLC, tenant and redeveloper of Building 105, known as the Chain Forge Building, on a portion of parcel NY1 in the historic monument area of the Charlestown Navy Yard within the Charlestown Urban Renewal Area to allow additional time for the construction and opportunity zone equity financing and to obtain all necessary permits. Devin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. In December 2017, the BPDA and the CVPA Chain Forge LLC executed a ground lease for the redevelopment of the historic Chain Forge building in the Charlestown Navy Yard into a 230-room hotel with associated amenities and public improvements. Under the terms and conditions of that lease, the tenant would be in default of the lease in the event that it did not obtain building permits and financing by a date certain. This board has graciously authorized an extension of that time period several times since December 2017. Last year, BPDA real estate staff introduced a new business model whereby further extensions of the ground lease term would incur a financial fee in order to create a financial motivation for the developer to act as quickly as possible. That rate was set at $250,000 per 60-day extension. At the November 2019 board meeting, the board authorized an extension until January 31st, 2020. We are here today to request a further extension until April 30th of this year at the same pro rata rate. BPDA staff remains confident that CV Properties remains the right partner for this complicated development, but I understand that the board may have some questions about the reasons for the delay. To answer those questions, I'd like to introduce Dick Galvin, principal of CV Properties, who will speak briefly about the status of the project.
Thank you, Devin. Madam Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, thank you all so much for allowing us to come before you again to ask for another extension on this, as Devin mentioned, very complicated project. Since we last met, we've made significant progress towards getting to the goal line. We have shared all this with BPDA staff. We have selected a capital partner, an opportunity zone fund based in New York that is working diligently through the documentation. We have a brand that we're very excited about that will incorporate exciting public spaces, including a museum that we think will be complementary to the museum exhibit, celebrating the Chain Forge equipment that's part of the overall project. And since we last met, we have undertaken several improvements to the site, including new fencing, new cleanup, removal of several of the outside dumpsters, and securing a lot of the windows. So we continue to work on the project diligently. It's a $150 million project. It'll involve federal and state historic tax credits, brownfield tax credits, opportunity zone funding, and of course, a significant amount of debt. So without making any excuses, we're grateful for more time to get it closed. It's an important project obviously to the Navy Yard and to the city, and we're committed to making it happen. So I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Okay, thank you for that update. Any questions from the board?
I have one question. I think we all understand the complexities of this project, and I'm just wondering, given that we're doing another extension, what is the likelihood that you think you'll be back requesting another extension in April? Can you comment on that?
Sure. Two quick comments. One of the things we found with the last extension, a lot of it got chewed up with the holidays, just in terms of how the dates fell. So we ended up getting squeezed there. Given where we are, given this extension actually goes through April, and we were on the phone with our partners, with staff the other day, that's sufficient time to get it done and closed.
Great. That's a good answer. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 8, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the residential building located at 530 Western Avenue in Brighton. Lance?
No, we just take questions on these. It's a certificate of completion.
Oh, we just do them all? Okay, I will read 8 through 10. Item number 9, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion of the 32 Cambridge Street project, also known as the Graphic in Charlestown. And item number 10, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the improvements to the Landmark Center project located at the corner of 309 Park Drive, 201 Brookline Avenue in Fenway. A motion is in order.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Okay, item number 11, these are Article 80 developments, not open to public testimony. Item number 11 is request authorization to terminate the existing affordable housing agreement for the 45 L Street project and to execute an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction for the 4 IDP units. John.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. 45 L Street was originally approved by the BRA Board on October 16th of 2014 to construct a 5-story mixed-use development containing 30 condominium units, including 4 IDP units. The proponent, 45 L Street Development LLC, filed a notice of project change on September 21st of 2018, proposing to change the under-construction project from condominiums to rental units. The now-completed project's IDP commitment remains 4 affordable units, which will be now marketed at 70% of AMI. A BPDA-sponsored public meeting was held at the South Boston Public Library, located on East Broadway, and it was advertised in both the local papers. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 12, request authorization to enter into affordable rental housing agreement and restriction for the 2 IDP units located at 4 through 8 Tileston Street. Tim.
4 to 8 Tileston Street in Hyde Park is a 14-unit project and is not, does not need to be reviewed by this board under Article 80. However, it does need a zoning variance and does fall under the inclusionary development policy. And so we're here today for a board vote to approve an affordable rental housing agreement and restriction for the 2 IDP units that would be in this project.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Item number 13 has been removed. Item number 14, request authorization to issue a certificate of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the Zoning Code in connection with the notice of project change for the construction of a building with 24 income-restricted residential rental units with ground floor retail space located at 387 through 397 Dudley Street, and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. This proposed project was previously approved by the board on August 15th, 2013. The project contemplated 42 units, 3,200 square feet of ground floor retail and 10 parking spaces, including the demolition and reconstruction of 387-397 Dudley Street, a total renovation of 375-385 Dudley Street, and related adjacent connection to the new constructed building located at 387-397 Dudley Street. A total renovation of the building located at 204-206 Hampden Street -2-4 Dunmore Street, and new construction of 10 units located at 200 Hampden Street. At that point in time, Nuestra, the proponent, was unable to move forward with the proposed project due to lack of financing and support from the city and the state. The team has since reorganized the project by increasing the total number of units in this building right here from 12 to 24 units, located obviously at 387-397 Dudley Street, while the other two buildings in red will be just renovated. I don't know if my development team and their architect are on the orange line or stuck in an elevator, but this is the notice of project change. So that completes my presentation.
They're not here?
Okay.
There's nobody here to make a presentation, Lance?
I-
Maybe we should probably Sure.
I mean,
I move we table this.
I can give you the details of the project. I mean, I know it inside and out. I worked on it almost 10 years ago, so.
What do you think?
I'll second that motion to table.
I move we table it until the team is here to actually present themselves. I think that would be
Is
better.
this the team? Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
and there's my team.
We should,
Oh, sorry.
there's a motion on the table. We
Oh,
should take a vote.
So there is a motion on the table to,
Can't we just undo the motion?
right, he did second it,
Oh,
though.
you did?
Oh, okay, so, yeah,
I'll withdraw the second.
okay.
Yeah,
So
withdraw the motion.
everything's withdrawn? And we will proceed with the presentation.
So my name is Rebecca Plaut-Matner. I work for Nuestra Comunidad, which is currently the owner of these three sites. And as I don't know, people with long memories will remember, this project came before this board in the early, starting around 2010. Did receive approval under the small project review process. And unfortunately, Nuestra was not able to proceed with it due to an inability to assemble all the financing. The project at that time included demolition of one building, 387, 397 Dudley Street, and in addition to renovation in the two buildings that are red on our slide, also included new construction on Hamden Street, right next to 204 and 210 Hamden. Thank you. That project proved to be too expensive to finance, and so we have scaled back the project. There's no longer new construction happening on Hampton Street, and we have redesigned the building at 387, 397 Dudley so that it is much more financially feasible. It has twice as many units. It's now a 12-unit building that is structurally quite unsound, and the original plan had only adding 12 units. We redesigned it and are going to be doing a little bit of a land swap with the neighbor to be able to create 24 new units. All of the units will be affordable. All the units in the entire complex will be affordable. Right now, only 9 units at 375 to 385 Dudley Street are restricted to affordable housing. So at this point, the only part of the project that is before the board is the new construction at 387, 397 Dudley. As I said, it was approved previously by the board, and it is a similar project in terms of massing and the relationship to the neighborhood, but provides twice as many affordable housing units.
Okay, great, thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Okay.
I have one question. I believe there are some small retail businesses in the bottom of the Hamden Street building. Are those going to be staying after the renovation, or are you going to have retail spaces there, and are those tenants going to be able to stay?
Yes, so there's actually retail on the first floor of both buildings on Dudley Street, and there's a Taylor, just one little retail space at Hamden Dunmore. Yes, we will continue to have first floor commercial at all three sites. There will need to be some relocation during construction. In each building, I could go into it, but there's a different level of disturbance in each building because of the scope of work. We are reducing the amount of commercial, ground floor commercial space in the new building simply because there's not a lot of demand for retail space in that neighborhood. D&D has told us that when they've put out RFPs for commercial space on Blue Hill just around the corner, they get no response. So, and we really want to create more housing units and more fully accessible and easy to use, handicap accessible units. So we will have 2 residential units in the rear, and we'll have about 1,500 square feet of commercial space in the front. So from the streetscape, it will continue to be functional commercial space, but in fact, it will be a little less just because it's so underutilized. The businesses that are there now often are closed, so it's not very lively. So we think if there's less, maybe we can enliven the streetscape.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, congratulations. Item number 15, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E-6, small project review of the zoning code for the construction of 20 income-restricted residential condominium units with ground floor retail and bicycle storage located at 75 through 81 Dudley Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief subject to BPDA design review and to take all related actions. Ebony.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary. The proposed development before you is 75 Dudley to 181 Dudley Street in Roxbury, which is the result of a comprehensive planning study for the Nubian Square neighborhood. Plan Nubian is currently a 3-year-long process that focuses on the disposition of vacant publicly owned land in Nubian Square, leveraging public assets to serve public good. Throughout the entire process, the city has worked to create and release RFPs that reflect community values and principles such as development without displacement, affordability levels that are a third, diversity and inclusion, and not just the development but through to those employed on the site, good job standards, and sustainability goals, to name a few. Each of the proposed developments that are before you are a culmination of this process, moving from initial workshops in 2016 to release of RFPs in 2018 to finally Article 80 and designation today. Madison Park Development Corporation proposes to construct a 4-story, approximately 23,940 square foot income-restricted condominium development. The project will contain 20 affordable condominium units, ground floor commercial space, and bicycle storage. Because the proposal does not contain parking spaces, residents will have the opportunity to lease parking spaces from the adjacent 2451 Washington Street project, which is also owned by Madison Park Development Corporation. The small project review application was filed with the BPDA on September 27th, 2019. One public meeting was held on November 13th, 2019, and the comment period closed on December 2nd. At this time, I will turn it over to the development team to go over their presentation in more detail, after which we'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Kuder. I'm the Director of Design with Dream Collaborative, the architect for the project. As Ebony explained, this will be a 20 affordable home ownership units, potentially 2 retail jobs. There's a commercial ground floor, 1 bike storage room with 1-to-1 bicycle accommodations, so 20 bicycle accommodations. The site is right in the center of this, right off Nubian Square, off of the Dudley bus station there. Adjacent to the current under construction 2451 project with Madison Park as well. So this is a sister site, very tight site that we're looking to fit as many units in as possible. You can familiarize yourself with local amenities. It's a very transit-oriented site, which is the objective of having no on-site parking spaces. Some of the existing conditions, it's currently a vacant lot, some overgrown shrub, and a little bit of laydown for the adjacent construction. This is the site plan. Apologies for the contrast on that, but the item to point out here is that it's shared exterior amenity space with the project that's currently under construction, so that the homeownership association can have an outdoor amenity space. The front elevation, which is off of, I believe, Guild Row, facing the park, is split into a couple of different massings. We've been before the BPDA and had some, discussions about the architecture. The side of the project on going back into the neighborhood, Kenilworth Street, is again divided in the massing so that it relates to the existing context. There are units all the way down to the ground floor at the back of the building here, adjacent to another Madison Park project, Kenilworth building, So it's a very neighborly adjacency, I guess you would say. The section of the project, there's a pretty significant cross slope on the site. So the entrance being shown here in kind of a red tone is a more generous height space that is adjacent to the building under construction. And then your kind of standard floor heights for the residential project at the back as it goes towards the back. Here's the sort of 3D view again with its sister project next door. So the materiality is going to reflect that project so that they look of a family but not identical to create that variety that we're looking for in kind of residential space. And a rendering of it across from the park. So the top corner here, the I guess rightmost ground floor, is a commercial space, about 700 square feet, pretty conservative space for a nice office or community partner to be. And the entrance of the building, again, is paired with the existing construction project. And I believe there's just a rendering of it, what we hope it will look like at night. That is all. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does that include your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay, well, let's move to questions from the board. Any questions? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Congratulations. Item number 16, request authorization to adopt a minor modification to the South End Urban Renewal Plan with respect to parcel 57 located at 380 Northampton Street for redevelopment and parcel 59 located at 599 Columbus Avenue to be subdivided into parcel 59A and parcel 59B, to issue a certificate of approval, a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80E, small project review of the zoning code for the Northampton Street residents consisting of 47 income-restricted residential units, to petition the zoning commission for an approval of an urban renewal area overlay district under section 3-1AB of the zoning code to allow existing uses of the Newcastle Saranac Apartments located in parcels 57 and 59 of the South End Urban Renewal Plan to enter into a new or amended land disposition agreements for parcels 57, 59A, and 59B, and to take all related actions. Michael.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. Michael Sinatra, BPDA Project Manager. The project before you is the Northampton Street Residences Creation Project. The existing site is a 9,586 square foot parking lot between the Southwest Corridor Park and the Newcastle Court Building, which in its entirety is located on parcels 59 and 57 of the South End Urban Renewal Plan. The proposal is to construct a new 5.5-story building with 47 rental units, 100% of which will be income restricted. The unit mix will consist of studios, 1 beds, 2 beds, and 3 beds. The total gross square footage will be 40,653 square feet with an FAR of 4.24. The height will be 61 feet. The proponent is also committing to pedestrian improvements as well as site lighting to improve safety in the neighborhood. The project is expected to create 70 construction jobs and 5 permanent jobs. No parking will be associated with this project, but it will include 47 bike storage spots due to its close proximity to the Mass Ave T station. The total development cost for the project will be $24 million, and the project will also need South End Landmarks approval. The proponent is seeking a new land disposition agreement and minor modification and the creation of a U district for this parcel. The proposal is to take what is now parcel 59 and subdivide it into 2 parcels, renamed parcels 59A and 59B. The Northampton creation will enter into a new LDA for parcel 59B and will be seeking Boston Zoning Commission approval for the creation of the U district. Parcels 59A and 57 will remain with the Newcastle project, which will be undergoing its own renovation and preservation. The small project review application was filed on September 6, 2019. 2 public meetings were held on October 1st, 2019 and January 9th, 2020. At this time, I will turn it over to the development team to go over their presentation in more detail, after which we would be happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, my name is Ted Lubitz. On behalf of THR Acquisition, I'd like to present to you a brief presentation on Northampton Street Residences. So as Michael mentioned, this will be 47 units of 100% income restricted housing. 25% of those units will be 2 bedrooms or greater. We'll be creating 70 temporary construction jobs and 2 full-time jobs. We will have 1 bike storage room that will have 1-for-1 bike storage for the residents. The project is also adjacent to the MBTA Mass Ave T-stop, and it's abuts the Southwest Quarter Park. So to give some proximity to where it is, it's in the northern portion of Roxbury. Also, as Michael mentioned, it's in the outer limits of the South End Landmark District. Again, the Southwest Corridor running adjacent to the project, and the MBTA site located there with Mass Ave just to the north. This is the site as it currently exists today. It's an ancillary parking lot for Newcastle Saranac housing. You can see a little bit there, but there is a grade change, which I'll mention later on, but it's about 5 feet difference from front to back. Again, the current conditions at the site. This is the footprint. It's about 9,500 square feet. As it is in the landmark district, and also given its close proximity to Newcastle Saranac, we really wanted to create some separation and connectivity to the site as well. So what we've done is we've sort of tapered the building back from Newcastle and from the park to create some separation, and we've also created a pocket park in between the two. The pocket park actually transcends that grade change and provides handicap accessibility to the management office located at Newcastle. It's just another site plan of that pocket park and also how it connects into the Southwest Corridor. Some of the pedestrian improvements that Michael mentioned are also noted on here. This is a rendering of that pocket park, which again provides access into the Newcastle building, which currently does not exist today. This is the massing in the context of the neighborhood. Again, because it's in the South End Landmark District, we really sort of went to the surrounding buildings to see what we could draw from inspiration for the project. You'll notice the yellow brick building in the center is Newcastle Court. And so we've taken certain inspiration from that, including brick articulation that exists throughout the South End and Roxbury. So this is the rendering. It will be a brick building. That's actually, the color changes are actually from different depths of the brick. So in certain areas, it protrudes about 2 inches out to create that sort of phasing and fading across horizontally. A little bit of a close-up of it. And that's the massing in the context of Newcastle. So it's 5 stories on the right side, 6 stories on the left, which is very similar to what Newcastle is to create that connectivity to it. Also of important note, we are planning a rooftop amenity deck on the 5th floor portion, which will be accessible from the 6th story. So that concludes our presentation. I've got members of our team here, including our attorney Paula Devereaux from Pierce Atwood, and representatives of the owner of Newcastle Saranac, Fenway Housing and Shaka Companies.
Okay, great, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
What activity is projected for the park side of the building?
So we've actually been meeting with PMAC about how to interface with the park. So we started those discussions about 3 weeks ago, and they have a lot of ideas. They actually just renamed this whole section and have a lot of plans to reimagine it, because right now it really services as an area that people pass through and not interact in and use. So our goal is really to activate it and create a street presence there so that it's actually used and not just overlooked. So at this point, there's nothing concretely planned, though.
What's in the floor plan, though?
The floor plan of the building?
Yeah.
So the...
on that ground level.
So this is the floor plan. So again, we're stepping back off the park. There are no entries on the park. So that is just the facade of the building. The main entrance is right here off of Northampton Street. And then the bike storage room is here. These are active bike lanes that come down through here and cross over into Saranac area. So it's important that we keep those undisturbed. But the idea is to work with PMAC to add uses here, and then there's also a sort of, it extends up here to the MBTA station that's pretty much dead grass. And so the idea is to activate this space and this space with them.
And the sidewalk width is what?
Sidewalk width, I believe, is 9 feet back from the street.
Okay.
Okay. Question? I had a question. There's, through the letters, some concerns about the parking situation or removal of parking. Can you just, at a high level, go over how you've addressed that situation?
Yes, I might ask for a member of ownership at Newcastle Saranac to address some of that, but we've been part of community meetings with the residents for those properties, and management and ownership has conducted studies for use in those lots. What you can't see here is, you can just see the beginning of it, but right down here is another ancillary parking lot that also services both of these properties. And so through the parking study, it's been identified that there's actually too much parking for the demand from the residents of the project.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Congratulations. Item number 17. Request authorization to issue a determination waiving further review pursuant to Section 80A-6 of the Boston Zoning Code, approving the notice of project change to develop 154 Terrace Street as Phase 2 of the 166 Terrace Street project, consisting of 64 residential homeowner units, including 3 IDP units and 27 parking spaces, and to take all related actions. Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden. My name is Stephen Harvey, and I'm a project manager at the BPDA, and I want to thank you for your time today. The project I bring before you today is 154 Terrace Street in Mission Hill neighborhood of Boston. The project is seeking a notice of project change, originally approved by the board as part of a much larger project that contained 154, 164, and 166 Terrace Street. The original project was approved by the board on January 26, 2006. The project was later broken up, revised, and reintroduced with Phase 1, 164, 166 Terrace Street. Also a notice of project change gaining approval from the board on July 17, 2008. Now to the present day project, Wind Development, the proponent, intends to complete this project that it was started 14 years ago by completing Phase 2, 154 Terrace Street. The Wind Development team will present the change project and the details that the detail changes since its original approval in 2006. All in all, the new project is a 6-story building with 64 residential condominium units with 26 parking spaces. I conducted a public meeting for the project on December 18, 2019, which was advertised in the local paper. The project also had a 30-day comment period, which was extended past the 30-day time frame, ending on January 10, 2020. And now I'm going to hand it off to the Wind Development team.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be back in front of you. It's a pleasure to be presenting this project. So I've been working on Terrace Street for about a year now. The project has a rich history that extends far back, further than that. But first, to orient you, if you can see, it's a little faded, but 154 Terrace Street is in the Mission Hill neighborhood, is a 7-minute walk from both the Jackson Square, the Roxbury Crossing, and the Jackson Square MBTA stations. It's about a 20-minute commute to downtown Boston, and it's a 1-minute bike ride to the Southwest Corridor. Currently, the project site is overflow parking for Phase 1 of the development, which is Oliver Lofts, which Wynn has owned and managed for the last several years. Phase 1 was the rehabilitation of the proposed building. It was originally built in 1892 as the Highland Springs Brewery, and during Prohibition changed hands to be a music publishing company, later to be a pickle factory that created Kosher Pickles, was bought out by Hebrew National, and then sat vacant starting in the 80s for a few decades, up until 2006, at which point this board approved the rehabilitation of that building and also new construction left in the parking lot for a total of 175,000 gross square feet, 175 units, and about 9 stories. Unfortunately, after that approval, the real estate market collapsed and the project was not able to go forward. So, being financially infeasible, Wind Development purchased the property and proposed the first notice of project change to rehab the existing structure into 62 units, and then to delay phase 2 and come back to the board at a later point. This is phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 of the proposed project, which is already built, was completed in 2011. It contains 62 units of mixed income housing, 43 of which are income restricted affordable rental units, 16 of them are ownership units, and 3 of them are artist live-work spaces. There are also 48 parking spaces on site. Wind developed the project and has owned and managed the project ever since and is a proud member of the community. Over the last few years, Wind Development has been out in the community discussing phase 2 with the neighborhood and the BPDA. And what we've heard is 2 main things. First, that the Mission Hill neighborhood really wants to see this as an ownership project, that they really want an opportunity to buy into their neighborhood. And second, that those ownership units, the majority of them should be owner-occupied, that this really is an opportunity for a transient population. They really don't want short-term stays, and they really don't want students. So given this mandate, we went out to try to create a project that fit that bill. And after several design iterations, many conversations in the community, and countless meetings right here on this floor, we were able to officially submit a notice of project change on November 4th of last year. The BPDA hosted a very well-run public meeting on December 18th, and we're here today to propose a project that is significantly shorter, smaller, and has less units than what was originally proposed, but more importantly, it's a project that the Mission Hill community has supported, that we feel like they can buy into, and something that they're going to appreciate for years to come. So I want to thank the Mission Hill community for being an active partner throughout this process, and I would like to pass it off while showing you the previously approved project. I'd like to introduce Jeff from the architectural team to go over the designs.
Thank you. Again, Jeff Sargis from the architectural team. We're the architect on this project. Our design responds to a perceived horizontality within the historic building. We've responded to that by creating these horizontal bands undulating throughout the floor to draw your eye through the historic building into the new construction. The first floor has a small gathering space directly adjacent to the vestibule, which is also directly adjacent to bike storage, which will have a 1-to-1 count of 64. One of the amenity spaces that we will have is a rooftop area for tenants. Because of a small space, we're trying to use up as much of the views that we can.
I'll step in here. So for the affordability, as we mentioned, the first phase was about 69% affordable, with about 26% of the units converted to ownership. The second phase has 3 affordable units. So for a total, the 2 phases combined are about 37% affordable. But yet we still wanted both phases to comply with IDP separately. So in order to do that, we also proposed, and the BPDA accepted the fact that we'd contribute for the additional 6 units that would bring our project up to 13%. So that's approximately $1.32 million. And we'd really like that to create affordable housing elsewhere in Mission Hill.
The aerial view, you can see with that we are continuing the block, and the height difference between the first section of the historic and the middle section creates a bookending effect. On Columbus Avenue, you can see our horizontal bands continue over, breaking up as the second half of the historic building breaks up the regularity of the first. Looking north, you can see where the idea was inspired through from the banding here, and it's a good illustration of how the old connects with the new, drawing your eye through both, not mimicking either, but being its own while respecting the other. Through Terrace Street, our first floor is set back to create a 7-foot sidewalk. There's a canopy centrally located over the entrance for wayfinding purposes, and shoulder height windows to express activity from the interior and the exterior. The setback also gives an opportunity for downlighting to create a brighter street for pedestrians. Thank you very much.
Okay. Does that conclude the presentation?
Yes.
Great. Do we have any questions from the board?
I have a question. Given that Mission Hill is, after our vote, going to be owed basically 41 units of affordable housing, are there currently any outstanding units that are supposed to be being built in Mission Hill already that Mission Hill is waiting for, Tim? Do you know what I mean? Is there already a backload of affordable units that Mission Hill is waiting for? Or will this be the only group that Mission Hill is waiting for? I guess that's my question.
I believe if the way you phrase the questions, instead of doing six units on site, they're going to be paying into the fund.
Right.
Those funds can be used anywhere citywide. However, Mission Hill NHS does have a pipeline of a couple projects just down the street, closer to the Roxbury Crossing T-stop, including one that is homeownership, which they have not brought to us yet, but is part of a plan that's already been agreed upon that the city is interested in funding that part of the project, and that would be homeownership units.
I guess to follow up, how soon do you think Mission Hill will be able to get these units that aren't being created yet, that are just being funded but not created yet? Do you have any way of knowing? Not really.
It depends on Mission Hill and NHS. The last discussions we had with them was about their building that they're doing that's a rental building, but they have not had a discussion with the city in the last few months about that.
Okay,
But soon, yeah.
Thank you.
The site directly across the street to the north is a parking facility. That's owned by one of the hospitals, is it?
I believe so, yes.
Is there any conversation with them about potential development plans for that site? And then east on Terrace Street, there's also the empty site that goes up the hill that was at some point slated for development. Is there any knowledge of what's going to happen to that site in relation to what's happening here? And then finally, just in a sense of context, to the west of the building that the architecture team did a few years ago, there is also a small vacant site. Is there any plan for developing that as well? And I ask all of this because Terrace Street is a very small street. There's about to be another development that we've approved, actually two that I can think of, within 100 yards of here. That'll add a significant number of units. And it's also a fairly narrow street that is heavily traveled, particularly during rush hours. And I'm wondering how the addition of these units will mitigate some of the traffic issues that are inevitable on this very small street.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Landsberg. Attorney Joe Hanley for Wind Development. I also happen to represent Sebastian Marisol, who was designated by D&D to develop that very steep graded site that backs up on Parker Street. And that was a project that enjoyed enormous community support, has pretty robust affordability and a really interesting design with a lot of open space and is slated and permitted at this point as well. So we expect that to come online. As you referenced, there are, I think, at least a couple other Article 80 projects that this board has approved. The smaller site that you referenced, we also represented the owners there who were approved for, I think, a relatively small multifamily development, which would be home ownership next to the T property.
I knew I'd seen you before.
I'm sorry? So we've had a lot of, this dates back, you're absolutely right. I mean, Terrace Street is for a lot of years, it was a cut-through street towards Jackson Square and from Roxbury Crossing. It's industrial, so there aren't a lot of sidewalks. Wynn was really the first folks to invest in residential there, and so we've had a front-on view of what's happening. One of the things you'll see in the board memo that we've engaged, and we continue to work with the BPDA and the BTD on, and the community at large, is improvements to sort of quiet down and make pedestrian improvements on the sidewalk. Think about how we might introduce some parking, some resident parking, other things that the city and the community can support to really help us transition to a residential ecosystem. The thing we're most proud of, too, is that we worked with the community with overwhelming support to bring really the largest scale of home ownership in Mission Hill, which, as you know, has a real disparity of rental units and a lack of home ownership. And surprisingly, it looks like Taro Street is the beginning of that location for that. Thank you.
Interesting. Any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure.
All right, item number 18. Request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving further review pursuant to Article 80, Section 80B-5.3D of the zoning code for the construction of 80 co-living units consisting of 280 bedroom, including 48 IDP bedrooms, 1,250 square feet of the ground floor flexible community space, a 45,000 square foot courtyard, and 30 parking spaces located at 525 Lincoln Street, and to take all related actions. Ashley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. I'm pleased to be before you this evening to recommend approval of the proposed Common Albright co-living project at 525 Lincoln Street in Alston. A development team partnership between Arcs Urban and Boylston Properties, both of whom have constructed other Article 80 projects in the Boston area, work closely with the Alston neighborhood, both through the pre-file stages and within the Article 80 process, to develop an innovative housing proposal which has been well received by the community and supported by the Impact Advisory Group. As you will hear shortly from the development team, the co-living model presented in the Common Albright project has been thoughtfully created to provide an innovative and cost-effective alternative to the existing housing stock available in the Alston neighborhood and City of Boston as a whole. The proposed project calls for a 6-story, approximately 125,175 gross square foot residential building, contemplated to include approximately 278 bedrooms and 80 rental units. The proponent has committed to providing 20% of the total units in the project as inclusionary development policy units, which will provide approximately 48 income-restricted bedrooms. In addition to exceeding the requirements of the inclusionary development policy, the proposed project will also provide a number of substantial benefits to the immediate area and neighborhood around the project site. Approximately 1,250 square feet of ground floor flexible community space will be available free of charge to local community groups and members for events and activities ranging from community meetings to artist workspace to neighborhood holiday markets. A number of transportation benefits will also be provided, including a $10,000 contribution to improvements coming out of the Alston Bright Mobility Study, the sponsorship and installation of a blue bike station in or near the project site, a $20 monthly transit subsidy for all residents, on-site shared electric vehicles, and a parking utilization assessment 18 months after building opening. The pedestrian experience and safety will be greatly improved through public realm improvements along Lincoln Street and Cambridge Street, as well as new crosswalks and curb improvements at Cambridge Street and Empire Street. The project site abuts what is known as the Lincoln Street Green Strip, and the proponent has been committed throughout the process to improvements in support of the green area. Specifically, the proponent will make a $10,000 contribution towards the master plan and design efforts for improvements to the green strip, which will be further supported by a $25,000 contribution towards the implementation of such improvements. Further, the proponent will be entering into a license agreement with the City of Boston Public Works Department for the maintenance of the green strip throughout the life of the proposed project. In closing, and before introducing Benjamin Mole, project proponent, I would like to thank the members of the Impact Advisory Group who collaborated with the BPDA through the Article 80 review process for the Common Albright project. Their feedback was hugely valuable to the process and the project, and we thank them for their time and efforts. With that, I will hand it over to Benjamin Mole. Both the development team and BPDA staff will be happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisling. I'm not really sure I can add much. That was so well done. As Aisling said, my name is Benji Mall. I am one of the principals of ARCS Urban, one of the proponents of this project. Here tonight with Andrew Coppoletti from Boylston Properties, our joint venture partner, as well as Paul Rufo, our attorney, and Hans Strauch, our architect, if you have any questions on that front. This project adds 80 units of high-density shared suites that we call co-living. And we started this project about 2 years ago. We went to the community and we said, what should we do here? This is a blank site, and we had an open house. And we got about 50% renters, 50% homeowners, and we had a blank site. And the three things that we heard was, we want the project to be affordable to folks in the community. We want to dramatically improve the pedestrian experience because the site is currently a surface parking lot with 3 sides of streets. And the third thing that we heard was we want to do something interesting from a transportation standpoint and thinking about how to be progressive when it comes to transportation. So a little bit more about the site here. As you can see, the site is at the intersection of Cambridge Street and Lincoln Street. It is currently a surface parking lot. Many of you might know the mural across the street. Many people frequently use Lincoln Street as a cut through, but if you drive over the Cambridge Street Bridge over the Pike, the site is on the right, and there's roughly an 18-foot grade change from the highest point to the lowest point. So when we were thinking about the site, again, one of the most important things was to improve the pedestrian experience, add as much green space as humanly possible, and really to activate what is a tundra right now to walk through. So as you can see on our site plan of the ground floor, on the right side of the site is amenity space with a parking lot that is a parking garage that is above grade but tucked tucked within the building and not really visible off of Cambridge Street, and then a community space on Lincoln Street. I think the most important things to look at on the floor plan are the massive green spaces that we're creating both on the Lincoln Street side, which is a new pocket park that will have artwork that will match the mural across the street, as well as the Lincoln Green Strip, which we're working in partnership with the Alston Brighton CDC and the Friends of Lincoln Green Strip group to reinvigorate and make a proud part of the community. So here you can view the building from Lincoln Street. You can see we've really worked hard to make the pedestrian experience friendly and to make the building transparent and activate the streetscape at the ground floor. You can see here where we're adding a large blue bike station, a part of our transportation plan, as well as the entrance on Lincoln Street. There are 2 entrances to the building. The other entrance is on Cambridge Street, which we hope will improve the connectivity on what is right now a street that virtually no one walks on. And this entrance really serves something that we heard throughout the design process from both the community, the BCDC, and the BPDA design staff, was that we wanted to break the building up into 3 distinct parts. And this entrance on Cambridge Street really does that. And you can see here kind of the 3 distinct parts. The top of the Cambridge Street Bridge, the middle section, which is made up primarily of brick facade, and then the part that serves the entrance on Lincoln Street at the end. So again, getting back to the pedestrian experience, this is now what Cambridge Street will look like. There will be 8-foot sidewalks with another 3-foot way for the public trees, and we think that this is a drastic improvement from the current streetscape. So again, here's a view from Lincoln Street. You can see the community space and the public garden that will be created as part of this, which will tie into the Lincoln green strip at the end of the site. And then here's just a view of the community space, which will be utilized for free from many members of the community. One of the other things I wanted to mention from a transportation standpoint, in addition to a mobility stipend, we'll also be having an electric vehicle car share, which will be one of the first in the city of Boston, where tenants will be allowed, as part of their tenancy, to have access to this car so that we can truly incentivize folks to not be driving in this neighborhood. So here's one more view of the project. And then just quickly on what co-living is. I know there's been a few other co-living projects that have been presented to the board, but it's high-density shared suites. Individuals will rent private bedrooms, mainly with their own ensuite bathrooms, and the units will come furnished. The goal is to remove as much tenant friction as humanly possible so that you can provide both a lower-cost alternative to other Class A buildings, studios, and to provide a new type of housing that is truly naturally occurring workforce housing, in addition to the 20% of units which we have deemed to income restrict at 2 different levels. So I'm sure there's some questions on the co-living.
If I may as well, Madam Chair, I would like to note that within the last few minutes, we did electronically receive a letter from District City Councilor Liz Breeden as well, commending the development team for their innovative thinking and their community outreach here. So I apologize, it's not in the package in front of you, but we will ensure it gets into the final product.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from, are you concluded with the presentation?
Sorry, that concludes the presentation.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Well, I'm curious, in Jamaica Plain, to rent a bedroom right now and live with a bunch of people is about $1,000 a month. And what kind of price range are we talking about here?
Sure. So the IDP units will be starting in the $800 unit range. The middle income units will be just over $1,000 a square foot. And then the market units we anticipate will be starting between $1,500 and $1,600. Keep in mind that includes all utilities, common area cleaning, and it's a Class A building. So we view that it's somewhere between 20 to 30% below the rent of studios in nearby Class A buildings.
What will keep this from becoming an Airbnb?
So one of the things that we will do is certainly we've commit to 12-month leases with any tenants, and there will be 8 members of the management staff on call. So, no short-term rentals will be allowed. Yeah, within the lease restriction, you will not be able to sublet your lease.
Okay. I'm not too familiar with co-living, so can you just maybe give an overview of, how does that process even work? I want to rent a bedroom.
Sure. So co-living has kind of grown as a phenomenon over the past 5 years as a result of the affordability housing crisis across the country. There's roughly 15,000 co-living beds right now across the country, with about 98% occupancy plus or minus, and 5,000 to 10,000 applications for this type of housing. Essentially what it is it's our building is comprised mainly of 3 and 4 bedroom suites with 2 or 3 bedrooms, so mainly en-suite bathrooms. Tenants who would like to live here will sign a lease for a bedroom and a bathroom, and then share the common area and amenity space with 2 or 3 other people. Now, the goal in operating this stuff is to ensure that you have as little tenant friction as possible, because there's a lot of problems historically with roommate living, whether someone's clean, whether you don't like someone's furniture, their guests, stuff like that. So the way that we intend to operate this, we're partnering with a company that is the largest co-living operator in the country, and they basically have it down to a science whereby if you don't like your roommates, you're allowed to move within a certain period of time within the building at no cost. There's no brokerage fees associated with coming to the building. So the whole goal is to bring down the cost of living. And it's something that we're hopeful will bring many of the young folks who are teaming up in the triple deckers in JP and Alston and Brighton into a purpose-built building for that type of living, where they're monitored, where there's security, where there's staff who are overseeing that type of living, but at the same time improving that experience. So everything is driven through a technology platform as well. So instead of paying your rent and then paying one roommate to pay all the utilities, everything is paid in one bill and taken care of by the management company.
So if 2 years after completion, this has in effect become a dormitory.
So there will be one of the commitments in order to gain what was incredible support from the community was to not have undergraduate students living in the building.
Dormitory for older individuals who may not even be enrolled in school, but who will act in small cohorts the way dormitory units operate. So if that were to happen, what recourse does the community have to address the kinds of challenges that often come with mature dormitory living?
I'm trying to understand in terms of when you say act in cohort, I think one of the important aspects of co-living is the ability to create community. And I think that we are hopeful that folks do interact with each other and that they do have a pleasant experience. And whether it's someone new moving to the city, instead of them going onto Craigslist and finding a room that they're going to take from potentially what could be a family that lived in a 3-bedroom unit in Brighton, that they would move to our building and then from that get a sense of community and either hopefully, because it's a lower rent and price point than they would otherwise, save enough money to buy a home or to move in to upgrade into a studio or a 1-bedroom unit elsewhere. But I think just in terms of if you look across the country at the data, there's so much demand for this product type. And the average age is 28 to 29. It's not your 22-year-old right out of college.
That's the assumption I've made.
Yeah.
That we're talking people who are probably somewhere postgraduate school, but pre whatever the next thing is in their lives. And I just think about neighborhoods in and around Boston where those kinds of populations have settled. Somerville was that for Cambridge for many years, for example. And if this becomes that, how does the community then re-engage with this process? I mean, I don't want to discourage innovation. I mean, I think that this is a very thoughtful innovation direction to take. But at this level, I mean, I know you've interacted with the community, but at this level, the board has not heard the argument, really, in favor of this, except in the abstract. So why on this site? And if it doesn't work out the way one would hope and the way you intend for it to work out, then what?
I would, just from the BPDA's perspective and through the Article 80 process, Mr. Landsmark, I think a lot of what we heard was that these people are already living in the neighborhood. This generation is already existing in the neighborhood, in units such as Carol referenced earlier across the city. So I think folks were really pleased with this innovative proposal. They see this as something that a lot of young people would like to live in. Being a young person myself, it's something that's attractive. So I think with that respect, this is a place that will be a home for people that are already in the neighborhoods. In addition, I think the ground floor community space will be highly utilized. It's something the community was very excited about. There were a lot of very active community members that engaged in the Article 80 process. So I do feel, and again, I think it's a good reflection of the development team, I think a lot of those members would have no problem if there were issues picking up the phone and calling one of the development team, if they had any concerns or anything like that, if that's what your question is getting at. But I do think that it was a good process. I think the community has a lot of trust in the development team and in the product they're trying to provide. So I felt that was definitely echoed to the BPDA through our review process.
I think one other thing as well, the building is also built so that at some point in 50 years, right, we've seen waves of how lodging houses and SROs and everything have been used. This building could theoretically be converted into family-style housing. It could be converted back into traditional apartments, right, in the sense with minor investment. So that's something that we've certainly thought about, and when we're building the building, we are doing it in such a way that if for some reason that happens, we'll be able to do that. But we believe that there's incredible demand as been shown nationally.
Tim Davis, BPDA Housing. I wanted to mention that this is actually the second co-living project that this board has approved. 217 Albany Street, which was the last phase of Ink Block, was approved a couple of years ago, and they have just recently pulled their actual permit. And it is almost identical in terms of its spirit and the way it's being operated. And knowing that 217 Albany was probably not our first, we were careful in how we looked at the affordability issues on that property so that we could model it and then do it with this one. So they're following a similar model in terms of how they're organizing it for the IDP as 217 Albany Street.
Just quickly, Paul Rufo, I'm attorney for the project. Mr. Director, Madam Chair, members of the board, on the legal point to address, we'll call it the bad apple problem, I think, which you've addressed, Mr. Landsmark. The advantage, I would say, from a legal point of view, are the separate leases, and the active management. So given the number of managers, and I won't say that other residents will turn people in, but they'll be able to identify the individuals involved here, and the eviction process or the enforcement of the lease provisions, which I haven't seen the lease, but I'm sure they'll be strict in terms of code of conduct, et cetera. The ability to identify and to take individual action through the lease provisions would actually be easier than, it seems to me, than bringing an action against people living in a 4-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, et cetera. So we don't know. You raise a good point. They certainly have thought about it, and the management company has thought about it and had different experiences in other major cities across the United States. But I just wanted to, I heard legal, and so I just wanted to address that. Hopefully that would be a tool that they could use with laser-like focus against folks who are not conforming to the provisions of the lease. Thank you for that.
I have one more question. Is there a market for this type of co-living for 60 and 70-year-olds, like a retirees? Like, is that happening?
And I think that roughly about 20% of these buildings across the country are made up of folks, I believe, age 40 and above. So there definitely are folks who are having intergenerational style living, and I think that's something that we're looking forward to exploring and hopefully kind of vetting further for future projects. But we have heard from so many folks in the community who are older, wow, can you do this just for the older community? This sounds like something that I would really be interested in.
Great, thank you.
Interesting. Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck with that. It's interesting. Okay. Item number 19. Request authorization to issue a preliminary adequacy determination waiving further review of Article 80, Section 80B-5.3D of the zoning code for the construction of 451 residential rental housing units, including 68 IDP units, and a 156-seat theater located at 1252 through 1270 Boylston Street, to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. And before we head with the presentation, I understand we have City Councilor Buck here to that wants to comment.
She certainly is here. So, Councilor Bach.
Mm-hmm. Welcome.
Hi, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. Thank you for hearing me. I am 11 days into being a city councilor, and so in that sense, very much a latecomer to this project, but just wanted to come up here and say that I've been really impressed coming in at the last minute by the immense amount of work that this project has done over the last 2 years with the many stakeholders in the community that I represent. So I'll leave it to the BPDA team to explain more of the details, but this is a project that's undergone substantial transformation on the basis of conversations with lots of members of the community. And I think where we've come out the other side is a project that's providing critical housing density at a time when we really need it, that's providing IDP units on site, which is really important, that additionally is providing some middle income units that aren't competing with those IDP sort of standard 70% AMI ones, but add on for a really critical need that the Fenway neighborhood feels to have middle income family units available. And just in general, the format of the housing is designed to have some more housing stock available at that middle income level. I've also just been impressed by the support for the Fenway Community Center, for the mounted unit and the parks, and for replacing a really storied institution in the Machine nightclub, which is something that has been a real pain point of this project and a challenge. And I think we're coming out the other side with a really valuable community asset. So I just wanted to appear here before you to say that one of the first orders of business for me over these 11 days has been having a chance to talk to everyone and to the project team, including specifically about that middle income component. And also, the neighborhood feels very strongly that they do want these units to be something that's for people in all stages of life, that is not a dormitory, that is not specifically an undergraduate dormitory. And the proponents have made a commitment in terms of initial lease up and also looking at the tipping point and sort of the not having a concentration of undergrads in the building that gives me comfort as a counselor. So I just wanted to express my support and to commend the proponents on their long work with the community on this front, and also to say that I think I and many members of the community, recognize that this is going to be an ongoing process, both the lease up of this building and some of the other sites that the proponents are looking at working on down the road. Definitely one other sort of issue has been the question of unit mix, and there is this desire to have more family units in the Fenway, and this is disproportionately studios, this building you're going to hear about. But I think that it is going to fill an important role, and that we're going to continue to have that conversation about increased family housing in the neighborhood as we go forward. So just wanted to express my support, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Tim.
Good evening, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The proposed project site is an approximately 30,585 square foot assemblage of two parcels at 1252 and 1268 and 1270 Boylston Street that is currently occupied by several businesses. The proposed project comprises approximately 226,700 square feet of mixed-use programming, including 451 residential rental housing units and a ground floor retail podium. The building will be 15 stories and approximately 162 feet tall, and will incorporate no parking spaces. In recognition of the site's history as an important venue for the LGBTQ community, the building will also feature the Boylston Black Box, a 10,000 square foot LGBTQ-centric venue for performing arts, anchored by a 156-seat theater, which will be operated on a nonprofit basis. The proponent filed a project notification form on April 11th, 2019. In response to a scoping determination issued by the BPDA, the proponent filed a draft project impact report on October 8th, 2019. The BPDA hosted 2 public meetings and 2 impact advisory group meetings about the project, and the proposed project was approved by the Boston Civic Design Commission on January 14th, 2020. Throughout the Article 80 review process, as you heard the councilor speak to just a moment ago, the proponent was responsive to feedback and mitigation proposals from staff, the community, and elected leaders. In addition to the Black Box Theater, which will be a major new cultural facility in the neighborhood, the proponent is committed to provide 9 additional IDP units for a total of 15% of all units, $150,000 to support the long-term sustainability of the Fenway Community Center, $100,000 to support the Back Bay Fens, $25,000 to support the Emerald Necklace mounted unit, a new blue bike station, and much-needed upgrades to the traffic signal at Boylston and Ipswich Streets. BPDA staff believes that the proposed project will be a positive addition to the neighborhood and is recommending approval of the proposed project. I'll now ask Andrew Flynn of Scape, to introduce himself and give a brief presentation on the proposed project, and we'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards.
First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to the director, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, and particularly the BPDA staff. You know, Tim and his team have been great partners throughout this 2.5-year process. Throughout the process, we have sincerely sought to foster and cultivate a spirit of stakeholder alignment and engagement. And I think we're all very proud to say that we have a breadth and depth of support from different facets of the community. Most importantly in the project, we're very proud to partner with the Theater Offensive, who's here with us tonight, to really preserve the heritage and the lineage of the LGBTQ community on the site. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our architect, Chris Anderson from Gensler, to walk through the project.
Hello, thank you. We could control like this. Great. Oh, I can't read these from here. Okay, great. I'm going to get to this one. So here you can see the existing site as it sits today. From the very onset, we knew the success of this project really hinged on how it would respond to its context. It's in a really important part of the city, obviously. And so its response to the neighborhood, its tying to the larger Boylston corridor, and its relationship to the Sunoco and the Fence site really had quite an impact on how we shaped the building. And you can see at its essence, it steps down from sort of the density of the west and comes down gently to the east and towards the neighborhood towards the back. This is just a slide that illustrates the sort of steps that it took to get to that point. You know, if you start with a simple block and you carve out a terrace and you break up the forms to sort of become more manageable, you're able to move those, step them down to the east, and again step them down to the south. This is a view looking east on Boylston. You know, we worked hard to ensure that we have a very sort of vibrant and active street front. Again, you can see the stepping forms, stepping down, and this is looking east on Boylston. In the aerial view, you can see its relationship to the park, the ballpark, and the larger corridor expansion. And through this process, we were able to sort of substantially make adjustments to the massing of the building. I'll be brief, but in essence, all the masses on the Boylston side have dropped 13 feet since the EP&F. And on the south side, the southwest tower dropped 30 feet and actually came inboard away from its neighborhood 12 feet, from its neighbor 12 feet, and then it came north, which is away from the alley, 8 feet. And the same holds for the smaller tower to the southeast. In essence, it's been diminished quite a bit, and I think we've been praised quite a bit from the community for these adjustments. We have a very rich material palette, you know, iron spot brick, real copper cladding, along with precast as well, and then metal accents. We've worked hard to design a very sustainable building. It has a number of features that will ensure that this project at least gains the credibility of a LEED Silver. And we've also worked hard to make sure that it's going to work with the future plans of the Boylston corridor. You know, we're going to have 2 cycle tracks, both the north and south side of the street. Once the street gets realigned, we'll have 2-way traffic going in both directions that will still allow for a dedicated drop-off and parking spots in front of this property. Again, a lot of time and effort's been spent on the sort of streetscape and the pedestrian experience. The sort of pocket park you can see on the northeast corner. And of course, the vibrancy of the Boylston black box. And the residential entry here with some seating that we've added in the last round. And this just is some details of the black box theater itself. As Tim had mentioned, it's been expanded to be 150 some seats, roughly 10,000 square feet with 3 levels. And within this theater, it also has a community space and flex space as well. And we're very excited about this. This is going to be a big asset for the larger community, and we just can't wait to get it started. Thank you.
Okay, great. Does that conclude your presentation? All right. Any questions from the board?
I hear you.
Oh, okay. Any questions from the board?
My comment is less a question than just a comment, and that is, I really have to commend the proponents for recognizing and in an evolved form making room for what has been an iconic place for one of our communities in Boston. And you're doing it in a community that's obviously very engaged. I mean, many of the letters that we saw asked why you weren't also developing a child care center and a health center and a neighborhood center. You're only developing one building, I understand that. That is primarily housing. So I commend you for that, and also I commend you for incorporating into this space a cultural use space, which is something we'd like to see in a lot more of our developments. And I think this is a great neighborhood to do it, particularly with the Boston Conservatory space kind of right around the corner and Berkeley just down the street. The question has been raised as to how this will be managed so that it doesn't become dormitory space. And how would you respond to that?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you for the kind words regarding the theater. It's really been a special process working with the Theater Offensive in the city to design that space at a very granular level and to make sure that it works, that it's versatile and that it works for everything from clinics and lessons on a Tuesday afternoon to marquee shows on a Friday or Saturday evening. So we're very excited to continue with the Theater Offensive to program that space and make sure that it's really a vibrant asset that enhances the arts and culture community in the Fenway. With regards to the concern you raised, I've worked closely with Councilor Bach over the past week to address the concerns, and what we've committed to is an active lease-up process where we're going to engage all channels of the leasing market. I've had a number of working sessions with different employers, different focus groups. We met with Age Friendly Boston to really understand how we can engage all of those different leasing channels, from jobs fairs to housing fairs at different senior centers around the neighborhood. And so I think, I certainly intend to continue to work closely with the councilor over the next 2 years of construction and throughout lease up to ensure that we really have a building that addresses and that attracts a broad spectrum of the housing market. Furthermore, we've agreed to adhere to a 25% restriction to kind of manage to that level of concentration. So I think that will be our barometer that we work towards. Otherwise, going forward, we continue to intend to work with all of the various neighborhood groups, including Fenway CDC, throughout lease up and throughout management, throughout operations, to make sure that we're driving an incredibly diverse mix of residents to our building.
Thank you.
I wanted to also comment that it was nice in the letters that we did receive to hear that you proactively reached out to the Boston Arts Academy in different ways to sponsor, engage with them and their students. And I think what you have there there's a lot of synergies there. So thank you for that as well. And then I think just in a general comment, I also appreciate your balance of the multiple stakeholders that you have here. And particularly recognizing that, the students of our city are a stakeholder in our city as well. I do want to, we are cognizant of that and just want to also keep that in mind. So I appreciate that there's a measured approach to being inclusive to our students as well. Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we just keeping going, or do another one? Do one more? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Item number 20, request authorization to adopt a minor modification with respect to parcel R19B located at 16 through 18 Chappie Street to allow for a change of use for the construction of a two-family townhouse and to enter into an amended and restated land disposition agreement with Joseph and Amy Wren and to issue a certificate of completion. Christopher.
Thank you. Director Golden, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, members of the board, before you, as stated, is a request to adopt a minor modification of the Charlestown Urban Renewal Plan to allow for the increased height, FAR, and density as land use requirements on parcel R19B in the Charlestown area. We also request a vote to enter into an amended and restated land disposition agreement allowing for a two-family to be built on the site and a certificate of completion issuance for the previous single-family residence that currently resides on R19B. Parcel R19B at 16 Chappie Street is about a 3,900 square foot parcel in Charlestown. The increased height and floor area ratio allowing for its redevelopment fall within the neighborhood zoning sub-district requirements, and the project is otherwise zoning compliant. The project has gone through a community process, and the home at 16 Chappie was viewed by staff to be built according to the land disposition agreement as a one-family ranch. The project would need to enter into a amended and restated LDA going from a single family to a two-family, and an incremental value fee would be assessed for the additional unit. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. And let's just squeeze in one more. Request authorization to adopt a minor modification with respect to parcel R-23B and R-23B-1 located at 34 and 36 Belmont Street to subdivide the parcels to allow for a change of use for the construction of a single-family townhouse and to enter into an amended and restated land disposition agreement and a new land disposition agreement with the Hickey Family LLC. Christopher.
Thank you, Director, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. Before you, as stated, is a request to adopt a minor modification of the Charlestown Urban Renewal Plan to allow for the increased height, FAR, and density land use requirements for parcel R23B and to subdivide it and to create parcel R23B-1. R23B, also known as 36 Belmont Street, is a single-family home owned by a local resident, Brian Hickey. His proposal allows for an increased height, floor area ratio, and density for a single-family parcel to remain on parcel R23B. In addition, the proposal subdivides the parcel, creating R23B-1 to allow for a two-family residence to be built on the new parcel in which his family plans to reside. The project went through a community process and had support from the community and electeds. An incremental value fee would be assessed for the two additional units being built on R23B-1. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we are going to take a brief recess before we begin with the public hearings portion of the agenda. So, back in 5. Public hearings portion of our agenda. So this is a public hearing for the First Amendment plan for Plan Development Area Number 107 Washington Village Project. No. Which other one? I make this one? The chairman's statement first? I have this first. Excuse me 1 second. What do I do first?
This, yep, that's what you want.
That's right. Okay. This is a public hearing for the First Amendment plan, for Plan Development Area Number 107 Washington Village Project, 235 Old Colony Avenue, South Boston, which was scheduled to be held on December 12, 2019 at 5:50 p.m. I moved and the board voted to table the proposed actions for further consideration. At this time, I move to take from the table the proposed actions for consideration and to hold the public hearing. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Back on the table. Okay, this is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code to consider the development plan for Plan Development Area Number 107, consisting of the construction of 235 Old Colony Avenue, Washington Village in South Boston. This hearing was duly advertised on November 27th, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so, again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golding. My name is Stephen Harvey, and I'm a project manager at the BPDA, and I want to thank you for your time today. The project I bring before you today is 235 Old Colony, also known as Washington Village, originally approved by the board on August 11, 2016. The project is located in the planned South Boston Dorchester Ave area, an area of South Boston that went through a 2-year planning process that involved the community as well as our own planning staff. On October 1st, 2019, I received a notice of project change request from the proponents of 235 Old Colony. The proponents proposed certain design changes to the original board-approved project. I will allow the Washington Village Development Team to elaborate on these changes in the presentation. Overall, the MPC, which amends the Plan Development Area, PDA, number 106, merges Building A and B. The new building, Building A/B, will contain 214 residential units, which is an increase of 90 residential units for this project, Phase 1. If approved, the MPC would again amend the PDA, increasing the overall unit count from 265 units to 749 units. We met with the Impact Advisory Group on Monday, November 4th, 2019, and the Community by Public Meeting on November 18th, 2019. The comment period ended on December 2nd, 2019. Also, this proposal was supported by this local community group and a number of local elected officials. Now, I will allow the Washington Village Development Team to present their proposed changes to the approved project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, Attorney Joe Hanley, McDermott, Quilty, and Miller. I had the pleasure of representing the initial development team back in 2016 when the board approved this overall project, and now I have the pleasure of being here with a new development team, which I'd like to introduce to you, give you a brief overview, and then ask our architect to take you through the presentation. But before I do that, I would like to thank the BPDA senior staff, John Greeley and Mike Christopher, who helped shepherd us through this notice of project change, as well as urban planning, and Stephen, who has been invaluable and very helpful in this process for the notice of project change. I also want to thank the Impact Advisory Group for their continued involvement and support, the South Boston elected delegation, the Intersquare Civic Association. The new development team is a partnership between Core Investments, Dave Pogereltz and Tim Mackey, who are with us, who are the original proponents, and Samuels and Associates, Peter Sugarides and Mike Fitzpatrick, who will also take you through the presentation. It's really a bit of a dream team combination for us and for this part of South Boston. We started, when we came to you in 2016, we were just a little bit before the beginning of the planning study, and we took a look at a 5-acre site that was distressed and formerly industrial site that was not contributing. It was sort of a detriment to the community in their own words, and we dug in together on a community-based development that we're all very proud of, and that at that time enjoyed unanimous support from every member of the South Boston elected delegation, the community group, very favorable from the IAG, and that was because it was more than just a development, but it was a community and helping us stitch this into the community with vast open space, neighborhood serving retail, as well as a housing program, really the first of its kind in South Boston that includes both rental, home ownership, income restricted IDP units, and an extra percentage of affordable that would cater to working class folks that make a little bit too much to qualify for current IDP, but not enough to get conforming mortgages, which is a real issue, particularly in South Boston. And so what we're here with is some changes that reflect some, where the market is now, but also complement and work better with the planning study, but stay true to all of the obligations, commitments, and community partnership for the overall project. So with that, I'd like to ask Dave Chilinsky from Prelage Chilinsky Architects, who was also the original architect for the project, to take you through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. David Chilinsky with PCA Architects. So moving on from the planning study, very quickly, this is not quite 5 acres at the corner of Damrell Street, Old Colony, and Dorchester Street. In terms of the overall context of that map that you saw, the Dot Ave study, we're at the very sort of like eastern edge and up against this neighborhood. Current conditions, the site has been cleared in the intervening years since the approval, so it's really ready to go. This is a highlight of the changes. And I would say that from a programmatic standpoint, we had some second floor retail that for feasibility reasons we've converted from retail to residential, which is one of the reasons the number of units has increased. We also have added a partial 7th floor internal to the site and a few parking spaces. Getting to the sort of the meat of the matter, this is the original master plan for the entire site. The reason we've put the dotted line around it is this is the only component of that master plan that has changed. And I think you can get a sense that we're 2 buildings and sort of an interior courtyard that was the public realm. And that has been revised where we brought that public park actually out to the street so that it's more accessible to the overall neighborhood. And in this earlier scheme, there was no parking that was associated with these buildings on their site. They were all parking in an above-ground garage in this location. We have moved 50 parking spaces to be internal to this new building. We also used this opportunity to catch up with the DOTAF study and have expanded the setbacks along Damrell Street and Old Colony and on Dorchester Street to be in compliance and allow for some of the long-range planning that came out of the study. Very briefly, at the upper level, again, the two buildings have been combined into one, and which has created above that parking area, a second level raised courtyard and amenity level for the residents. In terms of a first phase, this is the building with its internal 50-car parking lot. This will be an additional on-grade parking lot that is temporary until the new other structures and the structured parking where the parking will eventually come about. We worked with the BPDA staff and the BCDC to create an interim condition where we're using tilling and excavation from out of the site to actually create a bermed area here and here leading up to Tuckerman, which, if we get back to the second section, allows for some containment of this new park with this berm on the side in this cross section. And then this is the long section from Tuckerman down an accessible path through the park to Damrell Street. A brief view of the section through this first building. And then some before and afters. This was the previous location with a small gap between these buildings leading back to the courtyard. In this reorientation, the park has been brought out to the street. Again, from the rear view before and our current proposal. And just sort of walking around from the neighborhood perspective, before a 6-story building here on the corner of Dorchester Street and Old Colony, same 6 stories here, stepping up to 7 further into the site. This is a view of the new building, with its ground floor retail, which will run all the way around the perimeter of this new park. Just to give you a sense of scale, the green area that's depicted here is approximately the size of the green area that's in Post Office Square Park. I mean, obviously that's surrounded by parking ramps and many other sort of interventions. We actually have 25-foot wide sidewalks here where we view these to be probably restaurants and cafes that can spill out adjacent to the park. Also along this new street, we have the ability to bring food trucks and to actually hold community events. I can tell you that in the public meetings that we've had and with our IAG, we got great feedback about how bringing it out to the street makes it feel like there's more eyes on the park, that it's much more of a public space in terms of being open to the community, whereas before it might have felt a little bit more like an internal cloister. So we got some great feedback there. We are going to have, we've increased the height of our ground floor retail a couple of feet to enable some of these uses to be more visible and usable. And I'll just close with sort of our context street looking down Dorchester Street with the buildings that have been built in the intervening area. We think we're fairly much in scale with what our neighbors are now along Dorchester.
Okay.
So I think that's...
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as this is a public hearing, the board will wait for questions till after the public testimony. So if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of this project, please come to the podium.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary Minor Perez, representing the Carpenters Union. In behalf of hundreds of union carpenters that have been working throughout the city of Boston, I want to go on record and support.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Chair.
I rise in favor of this project. My name is Tom Ward. I'm an executive board member of Local 7. Our property abuts this, so we're very interested in what goes on there. It's a good development team. We've watched it for a few years, so I rise in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, Gary Walker, Electricians Local 103, I'd like to speak in strong support also. I'd like to thank Samuels and Associates for taking this project on and keeping it going. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of this proposal? Okay, do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium. And last, anyone who would like to speak in opposition, please come to the podium. Okay, hearing none, we will now take questions from the board. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, we're moving on to the second public hearing. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held to consider the housing creation proposal as submitted by HYM Investments, the Community Builders, and Pine Street Inn. This public hearing is required by the guidelines of the Housing Creation Regulations. This public hearing was duly advertised on January 2nd, 2020, in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by the members of the agency. Thereafter, those others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under these same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain, and at that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Tim Davis will now proceed.
I am pleased to be here to recommend to you a vote on the housing creation proposal for 3368 Washington Street in Jamaica Plain. Under the linkage program, commercial developers pay into the Neighborhood Housing Trust. Typically, they make their payments over a 7-year period. There is a provision within the regulations that we can actually speed up those payments and as a targeted payment to a specific project. In this case, we are looking at the 1 Congress Street Bullfinch Crossing project, which is just around the corner from here. The developer is HYM Investments. They recently pulled the permit for the office building, which is going to be the future home to State Street Investments. And they have linkage housing payments due on that project. In a unique move, we have done projects that are close by to projects before. This project is not, the receiving project is not near Congress Street. It's in Jamaica Plain. However, there is a great deal of interest and support from meeting citywide goals around providing housing for people who are formerly homeless. So we have here the 3368 Washington Street project in Jamaica Plain, which was approved by this agency a couple of months ago. So this is not an Article 80 approval. It's just a public hearing for this vote. The developer is Pine Street Inn and the Community Builders with 202 income restricted units, of which 140 would be for individuals who were formerly homeless, supportive housing, and then 62 mixed income units at a range of incomes, but all income restricted. I do not need a specific additional presentation from the developers, but Jan Griffin from the Pine Street Inn and Lydia Scott from the Community Builders are here if you have any questions.
Okay, great. Well, as it's a public hearing, we will, let's do that part. If there is anyone who would like to speak in favor of this proposal, please come to the podium.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, Minor Perez with the Carpenters Union, we'd like to go on record for this project.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden, once again, Gary Walker, Electricians Local 103, like to also speak in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, good evening, members of the board, Chairman Golden, Madam Chair. It's a great idea. Once again, I'd like to rise in favor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for coming. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this proposed project? Is there anyone to speak in opposition of this proposed project? Well, not really a project, but you know what I mean.
Right,
Yeah.
right, it would be in opposition
Yeah.
of the funding.
Opposition of the funding, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, anyone opposed who would like to speak? Okay, hearing none, let's move to the board questions. Any questions from the board?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. And it's probably not said enough, Tim. You take all the good that comes out of some of these projects, not only the affordable piece from One Congress, but look at the millions and millions of dollars that's coming out of that project in Jamaica Plain. And I have to shake my head when I see opposition sometimes to some of these projects. And you can't do what we're doing without One Congress and others. And it just, I don't know, as I said, I shake my head when I hear these people against a lot of these projects. Not only is that One Congress Street gonna beautify the city, but think about the lives it touched, just not only for the construction, but also everywhere else around the city. And we could do much more if we had more of those developments.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion passes. Thanks, Tim. Okay. On to Administration and Finance. Item number 24, request authorization in coordination with the City of Boston to enter into a 3-year agreement with Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated for GIS software support and training in an amount not to exceed $240,000. Carolyn.
Hi, thank you. Hello, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, board members, Director Golden. My name is Carolyn Bennett, GIS Manager for the BPDA. Thank you for your time today. I'm here to request authorization for the Director and BPDA to enter into an agreement with Environmental Systems Research Institute, ESRI, over a 3-year period for GIS software, technical support, and training as part of the BPDA's buy-in contribution to the City of Boston's Enterprise Licensing Agreement with ESRI. Our licensing is up for renewal every 3 years. The BPDA and the City of Boston are nationally and internationally recognized for the breadth and quality of our GIS implementation. The BPDA and the departments across the city apply the technology every day to support and improve city operations, decision-making, and citizen engagement. Some benefits of entering into this agreement are lower costs per unit for licensed software, substantially reduced administrative and procurement expenses, maintenance on all ESRI software identified in the proposal and deployed within the organization, and complete flexibility to deploy software products when and where needed. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your support.
Item number 25, request authorization to expend $25,938 for the final installment to Pablo Eduardo, the sculpture of Marathon Memorial Markers located in the Back Bay neighborhood, and to take all related actions. Chris.
Thank you. Director Golden, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, members of the board. Before you, as stated, is a request to expend the $25,938 for the final installment to Pablo Eduardo, the sculptor of the Marathon Memorial Markers. The 3 stone pillars commemorating the 3 lost lives and more than 260 wounded at the Boston Marathon finish line were placed on Boylston Street in August 2019. This memorandum requests issuance of the final disbursement of funds upon receipt of the invoice from the city or the artist. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. And we have a personnel update. Jamie.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Madam Secretary, Director Golden. We have a few items for your consideration on the BRA agenda. I'm Jamie Lamarco, Talent Acquisition Manager. We have 3 out-of-state travel items for your consideration. Details are in the board memo. Michelle Goldberg, Budget Director from the Budget and Finance Department. Trin Nguyen, Director of Office of the Workforce Development from Office of Workforce Development. Devin Cork, Director of Real Estate from the Real Estate Department. And we have 1 departure, with the details also listed in the board memo. Patricia Doherty, Assistant Director of Contract Compliance. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. And I need a motion to, that we pay our bills.
I move we pay our bills.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Let's pay some bills. And Director's update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the members. Good evening. Last week, as many of you know, the mayor delivered his State of the City address, and I'd like to focus on just a couple of things he mentioned that relate directly to the work that we do here. Mayor Walsh pointed out that Boston has added over 120,000 new jobs in the past 6 years, many of them derived directly and indirectly from the very positive development climate that we're experiencing. That's 120,000 jobs for people to care for themselves and their families. It's a tremendous accomplishment. It's a tremendous story and unprecedented historically. At the same time, we've trained and placed over 10,000 Bostonians with low incomes in better paying jobs. That's been accomplished largely through the work of the Office of Workforce Development, which derives revenue from commercial development. Commercial development pays into a neighborhood jobs trust that is then used by the Office of Workforce Development to finance job training programs that provide skills, new skills to Bostonians so that they can work their way up the socioeconomic ladder. Another really profound accomplishment in yielding investments in the human capital of the city of Boston. We also lead the nation in the creation of affordable housing. We lead the nation in the creation and maintenance of open space. The vast majority of the city lives within a very short walk to open public green space. We're also the most energy efficient and climate friendly city in the United States. The mayor celebrated those accomplishments, as do all of us who work on these issues here at the Boston Planning and Development Agency. Mayor also pointed out his goal of spending $500 million over the next 5 years to create affordable housing. For the first time in Boston's history, the mayor's also announced his intent that the city will fund rental vouchers. That has traditionally occurred at the federal and state level. It will now occur at the city level. It'll subsidize the rents of those most in need, including families experiencing chronic homelessness who are not otherwise eligible for the state's emergency assistance. It will also help formerly chronically homeless individuals, in addition to families, and it will help extremely low-income elderly and disabled households. We here at the agency certainly look forward to advancing the mayor's affordable housing goals in both our permitting and our planning decisions. I'm pleased also that as of tonight, as we begin the year, I'd like to describe how some very recent planning has yielded some really positive outcomes with regard to affordable housing. This board adopted what was formerly known as Plan Dudley, with the renaming of Dudley Square to Nubian Square. It is now Plan Nubian. We have approved just now 3 fully income-restricted projects in Roxbury. They flowed from that planning effort. These were specifically considered and embraced by the neighborhood of Roxbury. We adopted those in the plan, and now we've got 3 entirely affordable developments that have been approved and will be built to address the needs of people in the city and in Roxbury. I'd also like to go back at the beginning, the very beginning of tonight's proceeding, Michelle Goldberg presented on the budget as we sum up calendar year 2019. And it was a really remarkable story, given where we were and how far we've come. I came here in 2009, a really bad time budget-wise, same in 10, same in 11. But we have certainly turned the corner, and this was a really strong finish to the year from a budget standpoint. And as you pointed out, the board members, we thank you for your support of the reform efforts that have occurred in some of our operations, especially in the administration and finance realm. We've really developed a terrific team, and it yields benefits in the way the agency's run and the way the agency does the business of the people of Boston. We've improved procurement, we've improved our financial management systems, we've improved the way we manage our real estate assets, which provide so much of the revenue that drives this agency and pays for its budget. So in all of those ways, we've addressed the needs of the agency, and the financial performance this past calendar year has been really strong as a result. So I really want to commend and thank the team in our budget area, in the finance, the accounting, the administration realm. They're really doing some significant heavy lifting. Our real estate development division, to make sure our property is firing on all cylinders and allowing us to pay the bills and perform our mission. Finally, last year, we approved, this is a pace that's similar to the prior 5 years, but just over 10 million square feet of new development. It was worth, in 2019, $5.6 billion. We approved just under 5,000 new residential units last year, including 1,216 income-restricted units. That's 24% of all units permitted last year were income-restricted affordable. These development projects will also create, as they are built, 8,400 construction jobs and just under 8,000 permanent jobs. On a process standpoint, from the BPDA held approximately 458, give or take, community meetings. And that was to vet development proposals before neighborhoods, and it was to conduct planning discussions in the neighborhoods. So both of these things occupied an extraordinary amount of time, effort, and bandwidth of the agency staff. So I want to thank them for being out there night after night after night. We're really confident, I've mentioned this in past discussions, that we do more community process than any other city in America. There was actually a piece written by a graduate student at MIT on this subject. So we see it every day. Our folks are out there at night working with neighbors to improve the city, to improve their neighborhoods. And we kept up that extraordinary pace in 2019, engaging our neighbors. So with that, I just want to once again acknowledge this is the work we do that yields jobs for Bostonians, record property tax revenues for the city that help finance the services that make this a great place to live, and we're creating a record number of affordable units. So it's all these are all things that we feel really good about. I know you feel really good about them, and we keep telling our story because I think the more the people of Boston understand about the work we do and what we're accomplishing, they're really happy about it too. So thanks very much for your time. Good night.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. Well, just one. Just do one.